Hey, it's Salty Will. In this video, I'm going to cover an endgame build for igniting shocking fireballs. I started playing Path to Exile 2 in last December and made a Titan build and Amazon build from scratch and absolutely enjoyed the hell out of it. This is my first attempt playing Path to Exile 1 endgame and creating a build from scratch in this game. This is not a meta build, but it was a ton of fun seeing how far I could push fireballs and ignite. The goal of this build was to make Ignite Fireball as strong as possible and utilize as many aspects of Mercenary to help add elements, negative resist, and help with my survivability. A quick overview slot, essentially. Once you min-max your build, it starts getting pretty expensive. Here is what I'm going to cover in the video, and the chapter is also available in the details below. I'm going to cover the Ascension skills I had and why. Cover the tree, how I mapped it, and what skills I was looking for. The cluster jewels, what nodes I wanted. Gems, the gear I had, mercenary choices and gear, and path of building calculations, showing you how I figured out how to make my build optimized, and example gameplay. Let's go over our Ascension right here. So initially, I picked Shaper of Flame. It's always ignite. All damage can ignite. Enemies ignited by you have 40% chance, physical damage to be dealt converted to fire. All sounds really good, right? But once you start doing all your nodes in your tree, the fire damage, burn damage, ignite over time on it, you have a lot of ignite options in there. The same thing with your skills. So then you're wasting all hits can ignite. It's kind of pointless, right? So I ended up switching Shaper of Flames out for Shaper of Storms. That way I still have my fire damage, but then all my hits and all damage can shock. And also, your hits always have increased damage by at least 25%. End up getting up to 65% later. The numbers can be changed all the time out there, but you can see right now, I'm doing 31 million damage on the left. This attributes to 10 million to my damage. Then I went to the nodes on the left right here. I went for Mastermind of Discord. Exposure Inflict applies an extra minus 25% to defective resistance and regenerate 1% mana per second. And then a Heart of Destruction. You get convergence when you hit a unique enemy. So when you're doing a map, you're not getting extra damage. Again, I'll go over path to building damage at the end. But you get 60% increased area effect while you don't have convergence. We're spreading Ignite. Now, we're not doing much damage with our fireballs hits themselves, but that gives you a lot of damage against bosses right there. And then this one right here, the Liege of Primordial. This makes it so you have an extra golem, increased buff from golems, and you have 3 total golems right there. When I go over to tree later, I'll show you how to get a 4th golem. And golems add chaos resistance, energy regen, life regen, AoE damage, and then damage over time multiplier. It adds a lot of damage right there too. The main thing too is the chaos resistance, get life regen. Very good node right there. So those are the ones I got. Now there's a 5th Ascension you can get. I'll show you later in the tree. Let me go over to the jewel section. I got Bastion of Elements for survivability. I'm taking most of my damage as fire. This gives me 61,000 effective hit pool, essentially, for mapping. So this really helps with survivability quite a bit. Non-damaging elements become very important. Shaper Storms. Eventually, you'll be able to get your Shaper Storms up to 65% increased damage. So now with the Ascension out of the way, let's look at the skill tree. A few things to keep in mind is that most of the damage is damage over time through Ignite. Therefore, increases the spell damage have minimal impact as well as fire penetration. Crit chance and crit multipliers are not needed, as we're taking elemental overload, gives us more damage over 8 seconds. At least 1 crit in 8 seconds, no more, as multipliers don't work for you, as you can't get ignite on crits. Damage nodes that we're most interested in are generic damage, fire damage, burning damage, ignite related nodes, damage over time multipliers, faster elements. Now, keep in mind, though, is if you have something that's equal in damage to a faster element, you want to choose the other damage because faster elements make your ignite last shorter amount of time. So say you have a 4-second ignite, you might drop it down to 3.5 seconds. Now, mana efficiency, you need that to cover the aura's cost. You have quite a few auras in your build. Non-damaging elements affect your shock. And lastly, you need to add some sort of defense to your kit. So we added block and spell block. This tree will not cover the order in which the skills were picked, as mapping kept changing as I leveled up to add more efficiency to the skill tree. I'll provide skills that were picked and why. I've done as much as possible to minimize bridging nodes to focus on having the most impact. So now let's start at the beginning of the tree. Now this beginning part right here, the only reason why I have that is you get plus 20 strength, 20 dexterity. You need that for your equipment and gems, essentially. Now this one right here, it gives life and mana. Now when you go ahead and map up right here, you get some damaging nodes. Now, this is just damage over time. So when you look at it, this is 1.8 million for 3 nodes. So you get these damage over time multipliers, 20%. And then we keep mapping up over here, you get more damage over time. But this ignite chance, kind of pointless, because you already have the ignite chance through many different ways. But when you go over here, you get faster. This is 3.5 million damage for 3 nodes. Then you have the Fire Master right here. -5 to fire resist adds 1.2 million. Now, when you go up top, you get this fork in the tree right here. There's quite a few things that happen right here. We start off, let's go straight up top. You get the intelligence, and 40 intelligence. This allows you to add all the tattoos on your build later. But also, it's hard to get strength. And then, so this gives +5 strength per allocated mastery. That's 45 strength right now. That helps me get my kit going. And then let's go ahead and map out to the right. Map out the right over here. Get a large cluster jewel right there. So that's pretty obvious you need that. And then, so now you get the aura effect and a reservation. Getting your auras stronger essentially right here. And then increase damage. I'm going to add vitality to my kit later, which adds probably another 200,000 damage. And then my aura I'm getting from my mercenary also adds damage too. This probably adds closer to 800,000 to 1,000,000 damage. Depending on how my tree set up, calculations, all that. We'll go over pathability later. Let's go ahead and map to the left. Now, we don't take any shock nodes except for these ones right here. The chance of shock, again, pointless, same thing as ignite. You get effect of shock. Now, this one gives you, if you shocked the enemy recently, which you're always going to be doing, duration of lightning elements. Doesn't really matter too much, but it's nice to have. But you get the increased effect of lightning elements. That one alone says 1.8 million damage. Again, I'm only referencing numbers to show you the impact it has on the build. Numbers don't really matter. We'll go over that later. What we have right here is 15% to maximum effective shock. And as I went over earlier in Ascension, is we have Golem. So these ones affect the Golem buffs granted, and you get one extra Golem right here. You absolutely have to have this if you're doing Golems. Now, we don't do the mastery right here because the Golems already have max elemental resist. Don't really care about all the other minion stuff. You're just using them for your buffs. Map down here, you have access to a jewels right there. We'll go over jewels later. Down here, because you need increased mana. Regeneration rate is really important because our mana threshold is right at the same cost as our fireball. So you want to have mana like repopulate instantly. But the most important part right here is the mana mastery. We're stacking as many auras as we can. And doing so, you need to have enough to be able to cast your fireballs. Now, if you go up top here, yeah, fire damage, but you get the multipliers right here, very important. Right here, if you go all the way up top right here, go ahead and click that. That's 1.4 million for 4 points. So this is better efficiency right there. These are still pretty good, but the damage penetration is not mattering because we're not really doing much spell damage. So I took these ones off. Even those are really efficient in damage wise. It allowed me to map further into the tree. That's why I don't have that at all. Now go down to this other fork in the road, get that large jewel right there. We'll go over that later. Now you map down here, you got the first shield aspect. Now we're not using any energy shield on the currently shield that I have right now. You guys might choose something different than what I picked. That one gives you energy shield. We've got spell block right here, spell block, and then increased chance to block spell damage while I hold this shield. This is really important right here because you get 1% chance to block attack damage for 5% chance to block. That adds 28,000 effective hit pool. And my hit pool right now is based off the Guardian dude. So when you're doing regular maps, that really helps out quite a bit. So we're going to go ahead and look down here. So this fork in the road, we'll go this one last. We're going to go down right here. Great. Is you want dexterity, so we add that there. Now, really important, which I mentioned earlier, was elemental overload. This is why we don't care about crit chance and crit multiplier. Is whenever you get a crit, you have 40% more elemental damage with hits and ailments. So as long as you hit a crit once every 8 seconds, you're good. That's where you want to have cast speed instead of crit chance. So as you keep applying ignite, you're good to go. Now right here, it's pretty obvious. I mentioned before, is you want damage over time multipliers. And this gives us more spell block chance here. Now this is block chance mastery versus the other one. So this one gives you block spell damage for 5% chance to block attack damage. So the higher your attack block is, the higher this one goes up too. And we're going to go back up top right here. Map down here. These fire nodes get multipliers. So that's 10. That's 22% multiplier. And you get the fire resistance. That's nice, but way overcapped on it. But that's why I don't have to worry about too much fire resistance on my gear. Is you get the life energy shield. And the main reason we'll go here is you get the 8% chaos resistance. So that's pretty good. You can always add those to your tattoos, but the less tattoos you need for it, you can add for mana regeneration instead. This node's very important right here. So this one right here is very similar to over here. You get the aura effects, so you get the reservation efficiency, so you get 16% right there. And then you get another 12% right there. And then you get increased effect. So that increased effect adds, 700,000 damage. Now we map down here because you get strength node, you get access to his jewel right here. Then we'll go over jewels in a second, but essentially we want to add jewel slot right here. If we wanted to, we could add extra endurance, which I decided not to. Ideally is if you have the dexterity, you don't need this one. You map down here, dexterity node. Map down here. There's 1, 2, 3, 4 right here. 1, 2, 3, 4. And we go down here. 1, 2, 3, 4. So pick whatever you need for your build. So that's essentially the tree right there. And then let's go over jewels next. When going over the cluster jewels, you want to look at the notables you can put on them. I'll mention a few minutes from now is that it really matters what order it in, because if you don't take all 3 of the notables, you want the first 2 to be on the sides of your tree. So if I go to right here, is you want to have them 1 over here, 1 there. So that's an 8 node tree. So you want to make sure you get whatever you have. Now, you look right here, there's so many nobles you can do. And the ones I'm going to go over are the ones I've gone through this massive list and pick on it. And not every large cluster jewel has all the notables on it. So they have like a typical range of notables that you can get on. I'll put this link in the description right here. Go ahead and look it over, but just remember, you're not always going to get what you want. Some of these only apply on mediums, some apply on smalls. Now, there's a megalomatic gem you can get, which I did not add to my build at all, but you could get a mix and match 3 of these notables from all over the place, but you cannot add a jewel to it, small jewel to it. So there's a trade-off you're going to look at right there. I looked through this whole list quite intensively to come up with the large jewels I have. Okay, so now that we've gone over the tree, let's go over the cluster jewels themselves. We got 2 areas of 2 large cluster jewels right here. And they're practically the same setup for each of these sides. The one caveat is on this side right here, we have Sadis. So we have 2 Sadis right here. And we're always going to have the shock and ignite. The chill stuff doesn't count what's applied by my mercenary, but I do have a belt that gives me chill nearby enemies when I cast that. So that give me that 10% extra damage for bossing. We typically don't have that for mapping, but you don't really need it for mapping anyways. We got Sadis times 2, and then I got Prismatic Heart over here. You get 10% elemental resistance. Very helpful to round out your build. You can get this one twice if you need to, but I just have it once. And you get 30% increased elemental damage. I picked these 2 right here, and make sure when you get your large jewels or medium jewels that it maps out the way you want, because there's quite a few things you can choose from, but it's really hard to figure out what you want. Like, for example, these 2 are good, but if you get the Sadis right here, and you get Prismatic Heart up here, you get to pay an extra skill to get to it. If you want to min-max your tree mapping, you don't want to do that. This already in display, I didn't need right there. The only reason I picked it was because it's a middle skill up there, and I didn't want to map out to these ones right here. Let's go to the other large jewel. Again, I got Sadis again. This one I have Cremator right here. They get 30% increased fire damage, and ignited enemies you killed by your hits are destroyed. I was having trouble with the Porcupine guys for a little bit in mapping. So that's why I got Cremator. 2 Prismatic Hearts probably be just fine. Now, let's go to the gems themselves. This one actually, I got the same thing times twice. Astonishing Affliction is to see 1.3 million damage right there. Again, the damage just changes based on your setup. The reason why this is so good right here, it does a lot of damage and increases the duration of your ailments too. This is really good to get your shock consistently at 65. And this one also gives you 10% increased non-effect. And you also get this right here too. Inspired Impression also gives you the mana regeneration rate if you shocked the enemy recently. Now, you think like, oh, these are so good, might as well have this times 4, right? The problem you have right there is you get this right here, 1.3 million. It's only going to be 466,000 if I add that one right there, right? If you have it right here, it's 903,000. The non-damaging elements eventually stops working. As you see right here, this is 449,000 just for non-damaging elements. Eventually, you cap out, and you're consistently going to be 65% of your shock for all enemies. It has this diminishing return. If I add this right here, that's great. Come in here, and this shows the damage that goes down there too, right? See if I click that, 1.3 million, add that. Now it's only worth 1 million if I take it off. That's why you only have 2 of these medium cluster gems with that, and not 4. And so on these ones right here, you get cooked alive, and you have the negative fire resistance. You only get the extra damage though because you have these ones too on top of it. You can't just take 4 of these too, because start taking these ones off right here, this damage goes down a lot. You got Waste and Affliction right there. This one does increased damage elements and faster, so it does 1 million damage. You do that one times 2. It's alive right there, and then Waste and Affliction. You can pretty much just copy your same gems twice. Astonishing Affliction does so much more damage, but you can only have so much non-damaging elements. Small gems right here. Looking for damage over time multiplier, you got fire and generic one right there. Damaging elements do damage faster. I have mana reservation. I was struggling. I have a lot of auras. You can also get other things like fire damage, general damage on top of that. But these are the ones I like to have most on here. I had this one times 2. Like this one says increased damage. That's not as good as that increased fire damage. This one actually does more damage right here. That's 1.7 million. That's 1 million. Let's go ahead and look at our unique gem. So I mentioned earlier we had the 5th Ascendancy right there, Bastion of Element. In order to get that, you have Forbidden Flame. Allocates Bastion of Elements if you have matching modifier. Essentially, I'm giving up, let's just say 3 million damage right here to add the Ascendancy. The Ascendancy I added actually was defensive base, 51,000 effective hit pool. It's higher because right now it's set up for like, bossing. So general mapping helps you live pretty well. I picked this for survivability. I need something to live better. So that's why I got Bastion of Elements. This one is really good. Water's Eye, Prismatic Jewel. I don't have clarity on my build anymore, so that's kind of pointless. There's so many options you want. Is pretty much Malevolence. It increases the damage over time multiplier, which is great. Well, that and Anger aren't too expensive together. If you get Malevolence, damage over time multiplier, damage faster than Anger, it gets super expensive. Right there, this one adds 2.6 million damage. The Impossible Escape Radian Jewel. Pick that one because it takes me all the way over here. The Iron Reflexes. I got 30 techniques right here. That's 1.8 million damage. Then I have the Deflection right here, which gives me increased block chance. And it got 25% chance to gain an endurance charge when I block. So I don't really have much skill points left to play with. I add some damage right here if I want to, the faster. Or I got more block and elemental resistance right here. That's more blocking, whatever. The reason why I don't have this on my amulet is it only gives you endurance charges when you kill somebody. Typically when you're doing bossing, which is when you need extra survivability, is you're not killing as too many enemies. Most bosses, right? That's why I have this one here, and that's why I picked the Ascension of my amulet, the Snowforged, right there, because it gives you 25% increased damage and the -5 the elemental. Right? So that's pretty much it for my jewels right there. And again, if you don't want the 5th Ascension right there, add the extra damage on here or extra block, whatever. But I think I'm pretty happy with the setup right there quite a bit. Another thing to look forward to on here, you got Malevolence, you got Anger, Purity of Fire. You can take more lightning damage and ice damage as fire damage if you want to. So those are pretty good setups right there. Okay, now the fun part. Let's go over our gems. Fireball's our only skill that has the 6 slot on it, so we put it on our chest. The rest of the gems you can really mix and match as you see fit. You got 3 slots for the weapon and shield. You got 4 slots for the gloves, boots, and the helmet. Now keep in mind is I have awakened gems for many things. They're not needed for the build, but they improve it. That's anything too, like if you look at this max out gem levels, 21s versus 20, all that. Just keep adding more costs. So you still have the same gems I have, but the damage will vary. You have it corrupted at 21, you have it corrupted at level 6 awakened and all that. Those will change the damage up. We're gonna go over Fireball. I have golems, I got offensive auras, defensive auras, and utility skills, which is firewall and flame dash. So looking right now at the chest right here, I have 8 skills right here. I have currently set up as the bossing skill right there. And I'll show you, you gotta mix and match these right here, but right now for bossing, essentially you have the fireball skill, of course, and it's level 21. When bossing, you just need 1 fireball. So you got combustion right here, which adds 20% more damage, chance to ignite. So that's why you don't really need it as much on the tree. You're going to be over chance to ignite on this build, increase fire damage. And cool part is enemies ignited by supported skills have -10 fire resistance. So you're always going to keep that on for mapping and for bossing. We can burn in damage, but this one gives you +1 fire gem skills. So it helps increase fireball damage. Awakened Deadly Elements is get the more damage with the elements, the less damage with hits. You're going to keep this on for bossing and for mapping. And then Ignite Percolation, so that one's turned off. This one lets you spread your Ignite to the other enemies. That helps you clear maps very nicely. If you have that turned off, you hit an enemy, it's not going to spread Ignite. If you spread it, it kills the whole room. Now, Swift Affliction, I turn on for bossing, but I don't keep this one on for mapping. The reason why I don't keep it on for mapping is it gives you less duration skills. So as I take Ignite Percolation off, I pretty much add Swift Affliction, Unbound Elements for bosses. These ones off for bossing. Because this one says increase duration of elements. This one's faster, right? So that makes your ailment last short. My ignite duration is 2.99 seconds. The skills right here. This one off. Now it's at 1.93 seconds. So the longer you have it on, it means you can hit the boss less. Again, you're gonna be hitting them quite often anyways. But it gives you a chance to like dodge and all that stuff and still be doing damage. This is the damage setup you see like a boss in right here. Let's just take these ones off to show you this. And this is what I do for mapping. Greater projectiles gives you 4 additional projectiles. That's 5 total. This is your typical regular build setup. Yeah, take these ones off. So we can get the bosses right there. These ones back on there. And just swap that out. That's what you have in your chest. 6 link. But you want to keep this one on the 4 slot for the auras right here. Because you have a lighten right there. A lighten, well, it makes it so your auras take less mana from you. Malevolence you want to have because it does the damage over time multiplier. Skill effect duration is not really needed. Nice to have flame walls last longer though. you're fighting bosses because you just cast them and forget about them for like 10 seconds. I have Anger right here. It's not as strong as Violence. If you go right here, it says it's 7.8 million. Anger is 5 million, but still damage. Additional fire damage with spells. Then Purity Fire. I did this as a survivability mechanic. I'm taking a lot of physical damage as fire, lightning, and ice. So might as well get the fire resistance the highest possible. That's why I have that there. And the shield right here is only have 2 skills currently right there. And since I'm using multiple auras, I've got our lightning right there. I can always get a higher version of it, but 3 is fine. The Tempest shield right there gives me a higher chance to block, essentially. 26% chance to block spell damage while holding the shield. Immunity to shock, that's good. I don't know how I'm getting shocked, but now I'm not. So that's good. Vitality I have off right now because I don't have mana for it. If I do add it, adds damage right there based off one of my passive skills I have. That the more auras I have, the more damage I do. So it adds about 200,000 damage if I add that on there. Adds life regen, but I'm going to keep it level 1 or 2. For the weapon, I just have Flame Dash, Flame Wall, Efficacy. This one makes your Flame Wall last longer. That's why you want that there. Flame Wall is pretty cool because when you shoot your fireballs through the Flame Wall, it does more damage. You're just using Flame Wall when you're doing bossing or like Flame Dash, you just use it to teleport around. The golems are here. Power is not needed. Doesn't really add much. Doesn't do 1 life regen. The regen is what you care about. Not really needed, but if you have extra money to spend in the game, just do it. If not, it doesn't really matter. If you don't have the Empower, just throw all the golems in there because you have 4 golems. Chaos Golem, the damage over time multiplier, and Chaos Resistance. It adds a lot of damage, you see. Flame Golem, not as much damage, but it's 2.2 million, but adds AoE. And then Stone Golem increases your defense. More defense is better. Adds life regen. The helmet, again, doesn't really matter right here, but I got Automation and Steelskin. So those 2 have to be together. Automation is pretty much just auto casting skill whenever it's done. Adds 56,000 effective hit pool. It's not up 100% of the time, so there's always a gap in your defense. And then the Lightning Golem you definitely need because we don't have clarity on. Or helps with mana regen. 162 mana regen. And then Power, again, if I had extra thing to do on there, I put in Power. The main thing we really care about is the Fireball, and then the auras right here, and then the golem. And then if you add in powers or not, that's up to you. So the goal of this build was to use as many uniques as possible. As the base cost isn't that high, but it can get expensive once you start getting perfect rolls in gear. That applies to rare gear as well. Our armor level generally isn't that high, but we use our chest piece to mitigate that. The rest of our uniques are focused on adding damage around ailment. Our only rares are our gloves and our scepter, because we didn't really have any acceptable uniques on there. And our gloves, we need an implicit to add fire exposure. Very important for the build. So let's go ahead and walk through the gear. We'll go through the chest piece first. The Cloak of Flame Scholar's Robe. Again, I'm not going to do the exact cost right here, but the main thing you're trying to do is get Ignite duration. I want to get it pretty high on that because it helps keep your fireball going. If you get 40%, 50%, it's still fine, but you lose about half second duration. Now, I have +2 level socketed projectile gem. That's pretty good. The 5% increased maximum energy shield. I don't care about that one. Ideal setting on this, which again, this makes it expensive at this point. The +2 level socketed projectiles gems. And you get +1 level skill gem, something like that afterwards. That makes the fireball even stronger, adds more damage. So that's the ideal kit right there. The main reason why we take this is the duration of the element, and then 40% of physical damage taken as fire. That's mainly what you care about. And then when you start adding damage to that, that's just how you round up the build at the end. Now we're going to go over the boots. I got the Tempest Rising Goliath Greaves. The main reason why I have this, well, it's got movement speed, but the main thing on there is 20% increased duration of elements, and that goes up 25%, and it goes up to 25% faster. I have +2 AoE gems right there. So that's good for my Malviolence, Anger, and Purity Fire. +1 level of socketed gems would be better to make lightning go up. That'd help me with mana management better. So now we're going to go over to shield. I didn't add shield to later because I was dual wielding wands. The shield actually ended up being pretty good. Again, cost can be really cheap or really expensive. This one's a low price here because it has really high armor, really high block chance, and really high conversion of lightning, physical, and cool damage taken as fire. Scorch enemies in close range block is good. My mercenary has Scorch nearby enemies with the boots. My Scorch level is higher than my mercenary, so if I find the boss, I get hit. That's not the reason why we have the shield. That's just a bonus. Now we're going to go over to Scepter, and this is one of my most expensive pieces of gear. It adds about 11 million damage to my build. If I had a wand instead, though, I could have bought it much less. This costs 40. My best wand costs like 5 to 10 div. Right here is just, you get really, really expensive when you get the +1 all skills, +1 to fire spells. And then what you're looking for right here is damage over time multiplier, and you got the fire damage over time multiplier. Those are your 2 key ones right there. The mana regeneration rate was great. I don't need it anymore, but it was really nice to have that because my fireball uses up all my mana. You need to regenerate the mana almost instantly to keep your fireballs going. Quality adds elemental damage. My rare gloves right here. So what I have right here is I added life, because life's fine. Energy shield, who cares? I use this one to maximize our resistances. Got good roll on cold, lightning, chaos. The main thing is this one is get whatever you need to round up your build. But the implicit is what you matter about. So you need fire exposure. Right now I got 13 and 16. Main thing is you need fire exposure on your build, and you get that through the glove. Then all your other skills, such as your Ascension and increased fire exposure, that's your rare glove, and it adds about 12 million damage to my build currently. So the helm right here is I have Crown of the Inward Eye, Prophet Crown. This one generally gives you pretty good armor, energy shield for what you're getting. But this for about a div. I forget what transition of soul, body, mind means, but essentially is one of them has increased damage for increased maximum mana. But it gets you more life, mana, global energy shield. And then the corruption effect on there is one I had like this beforehand, had just burning damage, goes up to 40%. Increased shock effect is also a bonus one too. Lucky and found this one on the store for one div. Had both effects I needed. So let's go to the left ring first. The taming, I get 33% elemental resistance on there. You can get it up to 40 and then whatever you do for modifiers on there, but 40% resistance max. The key part here, it says 48% increased elemental damage with hits and elements for each type of element on the enemy. So we currently have Ignite, Shock, Scorch, Chill on the enemy. So it's about 200% increased damage right there. So that's quite a bit. And the right ring unique is the Replica Ember Wake Ruby Ring. We're way over capped in fire resistance. What we care about is fire damage, increased cast speed, which kind of sucks on this one, but it's still part of it. It's 90% reduced ignite duration. But as you see, we're able to fix it with other stuff too, like the unique thing right here is 24% increase ignite duration. We still have a decent amount of ignite duration on us, but this one is a big lesser modifier to your kit. It's bad. But the ignite's still 50% damage, 54% damage faster. But you just got to remember is you got to make sure you manage your ignite duration, because this one is a big hinder on that. And then the amulet right there is, well, it has attributes on it, so it's cool. You got +3 levels of fireball. That's the main reason why you picked it. And you got 10% reduced attribute requirements. I can get rid of that one or drop it down a little bit and increase the mana preservation efficiency if I were to find another one to shop. Either way, we're like redlining our requirements for all our gear and skills. And as I mentioned earlier, I got Snowforge right there. Is I got the belt. His strength and dexterity were lacking. So that's why we had the 40 on there. And then this one gives you a unique skill on it. Put up my Q right there. It's a little guy right there. This says chill nearby enemies when you focus, causing 30% reduced action speed. That can't 100% verify that, but that should work with our sadist skill. Also, this has 69% increased damage with hits and elements against chilled enemies. Well, we could chill the enemies. Now let's go over to Flasks because they're really important. This one gets life, got some instant recovery, got some immunity to bleeding, and immunity to blood. Got armor right there. So these are used when your charges reach full. And you're going to be doing maps with tons of enemies once you get to high level anyway. So you're always going to have pretty much full charges unless you're at a boss. And then you got to look at the charges used. So if you're at a boss, you use this a second time because it's using 30, 60. You're going to keep that in mind. Dying Sun Flask is not needed. It's very expensive. It costs me 30 dips. You can use a regular ruby flask. This one's just cool because right now I have 5 fireballs. And then I go ahead and use this right now. I got 7 fireballs. 7 fireballs are cooler than 5. And it just makes it so you don't have to aim it all during the map. Now, the other ruby flask is probably better because you get more charges out of it. You can only use this once. So you find a boss, not really that useful unless the boss has minions. But this gives you the +5 maximum fire resistance. And you get extra hits. You don't need it, it just looks cool. And it's easier to hit enemies when you have more fireballs. Overflowing Chalice. I didn't really have a good alternative for this one. I mainly picked this one because it did 40% increased damage. And when you're mapping, it just gives you increased charges. Now, this one right here is pretty good. The Cinder Swallow Earn Silver Flask. This one gives you Onslaught right here. So this gives the Onslaught. We're not consuming United Corpses, so who cares about that? What we do care about, though, is the Malediction. It is not reflected by Path of Building, but enemies take 10% increased damage. Which one you see right here says enemies ignited by you take 10% increased damage. The Malediction does 10% increased damage. And then they also do 10% less damage to you when they're inflicted with ignites when you have the skill going. And then recover mana when you kill an enemy. Don't really care about that one. And Flask right here. So if I take this one off, that says about 1 million damage right there for the 40% Flask. That's 1.5 million for the Cinder Swallow. That's probably 3 million damage if it counts 10% like that. So that's adding more, like 1.5 million damage more than what it's saying. So that's pretty cool. This one shouldn't add any damage, but it helps with your effective hit pull because your fire resistance goes up. So that is my Flasks. And that is my equipment. There might be some better setups you could do, but for most bang for your buck, that's what I have right there. Again, once you get in perfect rolls on these, they get expensive. Otherwise, it's pretty cheap to buy most of these gears. Let's go ahead and look at mercenaries. I had a lot of cool things to my mercenary, and I had a lot of help with the people on my stream giving me recommendations. Let's look at this first. I'm using my mercenary to add curses. Let's go ahead and look at the curse generations first. I have the gloves right here. Again, you might be able to get different curse on here. You can always add to your ring. This got pretty expensive because it has enfeeble on hit. Also, this says you can apply additional curse. So what we're doing right now is curse on hit, additional curse. We got curse on hit right there. This one does not give you an extra curse right here, but gives you additional curse. Hexes, you can apply hexproof enemies. So this is Corpse Will's Assassin's Guard. This is Vixen's Entrapment and Body Gloves. You want these two if you want to be able to get three curses. Again, I added a curse to these gloves, made it very expensive, but you can probably add to the ring. Because this one right here, didn't really care what I had right there. But it says curse enemies with flammability and hit, level 1 version. And this is curse enemies with elemental weakness and hit. So now I don't have to worry about casting curses. And then you get 3 curses going on from there. And this belt right here, don't really care about what's happening for my mercenary, but it says nearby enemies convert 25% of physical damage to fire. It means I'm taking more of my physical hits from enemies as fire, which is good because I have really high fire resist. Nearby enemies have scorched and take 50% increased effect of scorch. So that's a 15% effect scorch right there. And I'll show you in the path of building later how that affects damage, but that is good. As you see right here, I have scorch on my shield, but it says nearby enemies, so they're not even blocking. So just in general, when you're mapping, most enemies have scorch because of this. This ring right here is this all enemies get hit with chill. All damage hits which can chill. If you chill on everybody, I get my prismatic ring right here. That's 48% increased damage. That's the only reason why I care about is want all the enemies chilled. Amulet right here, also very important. Nearby enemies are covered in ash. They take increased fire damage. Everything I'm doing right here is just helping me do more damage or survivability. Shield right here, increased effect non-curse. That helps with the haste they have, so it makes haste stronger on me. But they have 5% chance to grant endurance charge to nearby allies on hit, and then the frenzy charge is on kill. The kill one doesn't apply bosses, so you don't get that. But in mapping, you'll end up getting some frenzy charges because your mercenary will kill. And I'm going to show this one in path of building in a minute, but this one is the cream of the crop right here. This one, reason why it's so important, I don't care about cold exposure, fire exposure on hit. I'm already doing it myself. It says nearby enemies have 50% increased fire and cold resistance. Now, increase is bad if you're positive, but I'm hitting enemies negative. So if they're negative 50% resist, this helmet, when my mercenaries nearby, is at negative 75% resist. And I'll show you the calculations in a minute when I go to path of building. That is key. My path of building setup right now does not show the elemental weakness at max potential. So I'll show that when we go over numbers later. The way I currently had it set up was level 1 for this and level 1 for flammability. But I think this is level 24 elemental weakness. I picked the kinetic assist. One, they had haste, right? Also, is they're hitting tons of enemies. So the more enemies they're hitting, the more curses they apply. So if you're watching the map, you'll see all the enemies are pretty much cursed. But now let's go ahead and let's go over look at path of building next. Here are some screenshots I took of path of building before I found out that you could actually add a mercenary as a party member. This was an example of my damage probably against a pinnacle boss. Right, my enemy resistance was 67. I then put that helmet right here on myself. I had malice as an example. And so if I go back to that screenshot right here, that's 67. When I put the helmet on and tested it out, went to negative 100%. So my damage right here is 30 million. I have different modifier setup. Path of building could change. When I put the helmet on, it was 33 million. When I put my old helmet back on and did the resist what it should be at, I was at capped damage. So that adds a lot of damage. And I'll show that in path of building in a minute how my party member changes so much to it. Look at path of building. So there's quite a few things you can do in here that changes your damage. It gets pretty complicated. I had a lot of these things on, so let's go ahead and turn off my party member first. So let's disable party effect, which is way down. Configuration is we're at Guardian Pinnacle Boss. Before I was able to add my mercenary, what I was doing was I would look up in here. So I had Ash, right? I had Ash right there. I have Scorch. And I put the 15 because that's what my mercenary was at. So I had those two things. Got the damage way back up there. Then what I would do is I would just make something up. I'd go flammability, and I was typing in this, and I was put it at level 14 because that referred exact, elemental weakness and flammability level 1 added up together was 28 million right there. That's what I was doing for guesstimate my damage. Let's go ahead and turn that off. Configuration. I don't need to have Ash on. I don't need to have Scorched. Turn that off. Like that was nice. You could add those in there, but that's a lot of work. What I ended up doing was I added a party member. Shows all the equipment they have on them. First limits, 3 evil, flammability, that, and it's elemental weakness. What minus 15 right there? I think it's like minus 34 at level 24. I can look later, but you can always edit these too, and then change your skills. Let's go ahead and I disabled them. Also have the haste aura. I got to rebuild them all. I'm at 29 million. Very similar to what I had before him, but I didn't have the haste on there, so There's a way to manually add it, but it's better to just add your mercenary right there too. Now, if I go to calculation, nickel boss right here, enemy resistance is -75. Turn off my party member, and resistance is at -18. That's a combination of the -34%. Let's do 20, -30, -50, 75. Yeah, that's a combination of losing the curses on there plus the helmet. Example I was showing earlier. Go ahead and add the party back in. There's quite a few things to look into here when you're doing damage. The one thing that's not always going to be on there for pinnacle bosses, it'll be on half the time. So you always keep that on. You got convergence right there. Take that off. Losing 7 million damage. And then Dirge Charge is not going to add to your life, but that adds to your hit pool. And probably going to want to put that to 1 for the boss, because you probably get that with the blocking and your mercenary getting it, but that's how you generate that. So you gotta look at your maximum endurance charges. That convergence is on half the time, so you're not always be maxed at convergence. Ignite lasts about 3 seconds. Now, if you had a 4-second duration on it, you could have 100% upkeep on that as example. Now you have so many things to look in here. Well, let's look at what's relevant to us. Have you chilled the enemy recently? Yes. Damage goes up. If you're fighting a boss, you're always going to be chilling them because you have focus going on your belt. Ignite, always going to have that. But you see, damage goes up and down. Because that's the sadist and the taming ring damage going up. If I go right here, let's go ahead and go to the tree. Go to sadist right there, 1.4 million. Go to calculations or configuration. Turn off the shock. And then sadist is going to go down to 830,000. So that's an example of the why it matters. Also applies to the ring too. If you're shocked recently or if they're shocked, enemy shocked, you're going to do more damage because of the ring too. So combination of things. So many small details to pay attention to. Now, you're doing over 1 million damage more to 27.4, 0.9 million. So it's almost 2 million damage difference. When you're fighting bosses, you always want to have the flame wall up. See, it's pretty important. That is Guardian Pinnacle boss, which you're not always fighting. Let's just go to general map. You're not going to have convergence on because you're not fighting those guys. You're going to skills right here, and you're going to have these two turned off because you're going to have the extra fireballs going on. Typically during a general map, you're doing 21 million damage DPS. That is killing all the monsters anyway, so who really cares? And then when I go to the boss of the map or whatever, take this one off, take this one off, this. Now we're at 32 million configuration. You're going to have convergence, and you're going to be at a boss now. So that's what you do right here. Enter the boss. Now I'm at 31 million damage ignite. I was at max ignite damage when I had 2 wands going on, but I had less survivability. So now it's a balancing act. But you see if my effective hit pool at a standard boss is 190, and if I turn the endurance up to 3, it's 200,000. Go back to 1. Go back to normal, no boss. Good regular map. Like my block, my endurance is up there. So typically regular map, if you're just trying to clear it out, 477,000 effective hit pool. You have a hard time dying on a regular map. When you get the T17 map, yeah, it gets harder and all that. And you can always change some settings in here. You can play with all these different skills right here. The aura from the mercenary, not mercenary, the golem. Doesn't really add much, who really cares. But yeah, these are those examples that you can do. In order to add the party member to your build right here, and I'm going to go back to my mercenary right here, Merc. And then I go to my items, add all the gear on there, right? And if I go to import, export, you have to export, so you generate it. You have to export as support. Then you copy and paste that to the party member right here. Might just copy what I just did right there. I go to import. Should add them all right there. But it's the same character, so I don't know if it worked or not, but it has an story, all that stuff. So there you go. And if I go to, there's a way to show more details right here, as you saw my past one where I was able to actually edit it. But anyways, that's that. Show advanced info. There you go. That's how you're able to edit the stuff in there. It doesn't really matter because it's the same character. So if I go back here, don't save. I go back to the one I was at. We got my party member. Yeah, got all the stuff right here. Now, if I go to flammability right here, last thing I'll show, damage does go up because Ignite's still maxed out. But if I go to configurations, let's go to Guardian Pinnacle boss right here. If I go to, many things to look at. I'll go at the disable it first, probably disable, renable, 33 million. I go, because you might get those curses cast on the boss too. If I go back and disable party, rebuild. So it's there between 28 million and 33 million. Your damage is pretty high. If I want to add a better item to my kit right now, my scepter, I'm going to do trade for items, find weapons best, and I'm going to do 100% ignite. That's what I care about, ignite damage. Execute right there. I'll click right there, and let's see what I can find. All right, well, I don't have a mirror. Again, these are very, very expensive. All right, this is 450 divine. That's pretty expensive, but I actually think I have that because I was able to do sell recently. I need to post that short sale, but let's go ahead and copy paste this one to my build. And if I go, again, that's expensive. That's like, dream level tier. If I add this one to my build, that adds 4.6 million damage to my kit. Now, before I had Dawnbreaker and all that, let's add the Demon Horn I had right there. I was doing 1 million to like 2.5 million damage less before. And this one was 510 divine. These were 1 divine each. The expensive scepter I show you is nice to have, but you can just add this cheaper wand, and then my damage goes down, but I still do some damage without the scepter. Scepter obviously is better, at more damage, but what you're trying to do at the end of the day is get your build going. Once you know what you want, and you're like, oh, what can I find better? What can I find better? And then you go from there. So that covers most of what I'm going to cover right now. Let's go over some gameplay next.
Oh, go on. When I'm ready, I'm not before.
I ended up buying a better scepter since I finished recording the video. So this is the one I had. I bought this light star for 450 div, so definitely not cheap. It adds 4.5 million damage to the kit. This is for basic mapping, I believe. I'll double check in a minute. So we'll get that going right there. And then I bought this armor, 50 div. Main difference is it has a +1 level socket gem instead of the plus 5% energy shield. That's about 3 million. Great. And let's go to configuration. I gotta turn off Convergence. Basic mapping is 27.5 million damage now. I went up quite a bit. And let's go, I was at 21 million, I believe, before him. And then we're gonna go ahead and add up our skills. Let's go and take off Predator projectiles, Ignite Perforation, Wicked Swift, Wicked Unbound, max right there. Calculations, configurations. Convergence is gonna be on. We're gonna look at bosses now. We're gonna look at standard boss, 36.2. Go to Guardian boss, 36.1. Almost maxed out right there, right? And then we go to Uber boss, 11 million. So again, what I added was a lot of divs to it. 450 div scepter is definitely not needed, of course, because it'll do all the mapping without it. And this part of the video is thanking everybody who watched along the way. Gave me a lot of tips. My first time diving into Path Exile 1 and the end game, essentially. I started playing Path Exile 2 December, and I wanted to learn more about Path Exile 1. So I want to thank Raymond, Coco, and many other people who watched my stream. I'll try to add your names into the description when I can. And I plan on making a very similar build for Path of Exile 2. Let's see how the 6th season goes. And I'm pretty sure these tips will come a long way for your characters in upcoming Path of Exile 1 seasons. Fireball is not the best build at all, but it was a ton of fun building it, learning from scratch, and hopefully I'll make better builds in the future. Thanks everybody for watching, and I stream most nights 9 to midnight. Might take off some time. I had a baby and I got a job, but I appreciate everyone watching the videos and hanging out.
About the time I saw a golden rower.